All right, let's dive in. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the playbook that powers some of the most innovative and fastest moving teams in the world. We're going to demystify two terms you've probably heard a ton about: Agile and Scrum. I mean, it seems like magic, right? One day, a feature just isn't there, and then, boom, a few weeks later, there it is. But it's not magic. It's actually a very specific way of working, one that's designed for our fast-changing world. And to really get why this new way is so powerful, we've got to first take a look at the old way it replaced. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the problem, the old way's flaw. Then we'll zoom out to the big idea, the Agile philosophy. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of Scrum, the playbook itself, including the team, the tools, and the rhythm of their work. And finally, we'll tie it all together and see why any of this really matters.
Okay, so first up, to really appreciate why Agile was such a game changer, you have to understand the world it came from. You have to understand the old way of doing things.
For ages, most big projects ran on what's called the waterfall model. And it's pretty much a one-way street. You do all the design, then you lock it in. Then you do all the building, then you lock that in. Then all the testing. And you release everything in one big bang at the very end. The problem? Oh, it's a big one. If you discover a mistake, or worse, the customer changes their mind halfway through, well, good luck. It's a nightmare to go back. Agile, on the other hand, isn't a straight line. It's a loop. It's iterative. You work in these small, continuous cycles, delivering real value along the way.
So that brings us to Agile. And this is super important. Before you think of Agile as a bunch of rules or a process, you've got to see it for what it really is. It's a philosophy. It's a fundamental mindset shift in how we approach work. So what does that actually mean? Well, here's the core idea. Instead of, disappearing for a year to build a whole product behind closed doors, Agile teams build a little, test a little, and learn a lot in these short cycles. The goal is simple. Get something that works into the hands of users as fast as possible. Listen to what they have to say, and then make it better in the next cycle. These 4 values, they're basically the heart and soul of the whole philosophy. And notice that word, over. It's not saying the stuff on the right is worthless, not at all. It's just saying that when push comes to shove, you value the stuff on the left more. It means you care more about people actually talking to each other than just following a rigid process. And that last one, responding to change over following a plan, that is huge. Imagine your team spends a year building the perfect app based on a plan, only to launch and find out your competitor just blew you out of the water with a feature you never even thought of. An Agile team? They probably would have seen that coming months ago and pivoted. So if Agile is the big idea, the philosophy, how do you actually do it? Well, that's where Scrum comes in. Think of it as the most popular and practical playbook out there for actually living the Agile philosophy day to day.
This right here, this is probably the single most important distinction to get straight. Agile is the why. It's the mindset of being adaptive and collaborative. Scrum is the how. It's the actual nuts and bolts, the set of rules, roles, and events that give teams a structure to work within that mindset. And the engine that drives Scrum is something called a sprint. It's the short, super focused period of time. We're talking 1 to 4 weeks, where the team just hammers away at a specific chunk of work. And that time limit, it's non-negotiable. That's what they call time-boxed, and it's what creates this amazing rhythm and predictable focus. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the anatomy of Scrum. Who's actually on the team, and what are the tools of the trade? Okay, so you've got 3 key players here. First, the product owner. They're the voice of the customer. Their whole job is deciding what work is most valuable for the team to do. Then you have the Scrum Master. Think of them as the team's coach. They make sure everyone's playing by the Scrum rules and, crucially, they clear any obstacles out of the team's way. And finally, you have the development team. These are the makers, the designers, the engineers, the testers who actually build the thing. So, how do they manage all the work? With 3 key things they call artifacts. It all starts with the product backlog. That's the giant wish list for the entire product. For each sprint, the team pulls a small, manageable chunk from that list into the sprint backlog. That's their focused to-do list for the next couple of weeks. And what comes out at the other end? The increment. This is huge. It's a real, usable, working piece of the product that is so high quality, you could ship it to customers right then and there. Okay, so we've got the team and their tools. But what do they actually do all day? Well, that's where the Scrum events come in.
These are the meetings that create that steady, predictable pulse of progress.
This cycle is literally the engine of Scrum. A sprint kicks off with sprint planning, where the team agrees on what they'll accomplish. Then, every single day, they have a quick 15-minute daily Scrum just to sync up. At the end of the sprint, they hold a sprint review to show stakeholders what they build and get that crucial feedback. And finally, they have a sprint retrospective, where the team reflects and asks, how can we get better next time? Then, the whole cycle repeats.
Okay, so roles, artifacts, events. It might sound like a lot. You might be wondering, why bother with all this structure? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's all about the results it creates. Let's take a UX designer for a perfect example. In the old world, they might spend 6 months perfecting a design that nobody actually wants. In Scrum? No way. They can release a simple version in one sprint, watch real users interact with it, get that invaluable feedback, and use those insights to make it better in the very next sprint. It's a direct line to building what people actually need. All right, let's bring it all home. First, Agile is the mindset of being flexible and collaborative. Scrum is the framework that puts that mindset into action. The work gets done in short cycles called sprints. The roles, artifacts, and events provide the structure, and the ultimate goal is to always be improving and constantly delivering real value to your users. At the end of the day, this whole playbook is about empowering teams to adapt and build better products faster. So the question to leave you with is this. Now that you know the playbook, what's one piece of this system that could change the game for your team?